Welcome back to the Golden State with Mates post-game live after the Warriors suffered their third defeat of the season, 102-99 loss to the LA Clippers at the Intuit Dome. A very disappointing result where the Warriors killed themselves. A number of things here. Clearly, the free throw shooting we'll get into. I want to jump into your comments first and foremost. Though. I am starting this about 15 minutes earlier than scheduled. I've actually got a game of basketball myself in just over 90 minutes. So this might be a bit of a shorter stream, but if you've got any comments and you're in here, then please send them through. Brody says Steph wanted that pass to go to Lindy, to which Daniel Hall replies and says, I can't be mad at GP2. His stop is what led to the whole opportunity, but damn, I wish that shot went in. Yeah, okay, well, let's start with the final possession. Right, so the Warriors are down 102-92. Game looks done with just over 2 minutes remaining. And then they have a great few possessions in a row there on both the offensive and the defensive end. They score 7 straight points. And then GP2, as Daniel says, that clutch steal on the Clippers' final offensive possession to give the Warriors an opportunity to tie the game. Ty Lue doesn't foul or anything like that. So the Warriors get, in the end, 2 looks from distance to try and tie the game and force it into overtime. Steph's first one on the wing, tough contested 3, kind of hit back iron. That was a tough shot. Bit of a scramble for the ball. It was a frantic final play. Draymond saves it, and then the ball's tipped around a little bit. Wiggins grabs it, hits it to Draymond in the corner. Draymond swings it to the other wing, opposite wing to Steph. There's about 4 blokes just surrounding Steph. He wisely gives it up, except he gave it up to GP2, who grabbed the ball basically at the top of the key. Lindy Waters, the third, was like directly behind him. And as Brody says, Steph wanted that pass to go to Lindy Waters. Instead, GP2 is kind of in the way. And because he's in the way, he grabs the ball. And by that point, there was still probably time for him to just quickly shove it to Lindy Waters, who was standing right next to him. But I can understand for GP2 in that situation, it's literally the last 2-3 seconds. You probably just got to put it up in that situation. And unfortunately, he hits back iron and the Warriors fall in their third defeat of the season. But yes, you're absolutely right. Like Lindy Waters, the third, needed to take that last shot. I think he would have made. He was wide open, because everyone was surrounding Steph, assuming that he would take the last shot. Lindy Waters III is an elite three-point shooter, probably the third best on this team behind Steph and Buddy Hield. And we've seen him do it before against the Clippers. If we go back to the first preseason game where he hit that crazy buzzer-beating game winner to get the Warriors the win there, that would have been, at least a 50% look for Lindy Waters III in that situation, at least. And so a disappointing result that GP2 takes that, but there's so many other things that happen throughout the course of the game where you cannot really blame GP2. It's one of those situations. It kind of typified the game where it was just one of those games where things didn't go quite right for the Warriors. And it's that possession there where it's like you get a good look from 3, but it's not the guy you want to take it. And the guy was literally standing right next to him who you wanted him to take it, Lindy Waters. It kind of typified the game, unfortunately. A couple other things here from Brody and Daniel. Brody says, but you could tell Steph wanted that pass to go to Lindy. Yep. Daniel says Lindy's hands right there in the shooting pocket. It was going right to him. It was literally going right to him, and GP2 just got in the way. And to be fair, GP2 was also standing there, so it's not like he just appeared from nowhere and grabbed the ball out of Lindy Waters' hands. He was there. So the pass kind of was meant for both players, and really, the first one just took it. I don't really blame GP2 for it. It's a bit unfortunate. FTW Clan says free throws came back to kill us tonight. It's hard to watch this team at the line. Okay, so that's what I wanted to get into, right? Because if there's ever a game where one statistical area was the difference in the game, it's this one. Most times you can look at it and say, oh, well, we should have done this better. We should have done this better. They did that. We did this. All these different things, which you can still look at in a 3-point game. There's obviously 48 minutes of basketball. There's heaps of stuff to look at. But if there's one statistical area you can just absolutely pinpoint in this game, it's the free throw shooting. The Warriors take one more free throw attempt in this game, yet somehow manage to make 7 less. So they go 9 of 19 from the free throw line. it was tough. It was ugly. And against the Clipper team who are really locked in and good defensively, and the Warriors were struggling enough as it is from the floor and to also like get shots up because they were turning the ball over a heap in the first half, especially. Like you need to make those free throws count when you get it's called the charity stripe for a reason, right? You've got to make those count. And the Warriors didn't. 9 of 19. The Clippers go 16 of 18 in comparison. That's the game. Like the Clippers make 7 more free throws from 1 less attempt and win the game by 3. Like that is the game. In fact, I could finish this stream right now and like that's all we need to talk about, the free throw shooting. I don't know. I've spoken about it before. This is kind of the first time where it's really come back to bite the Warriors in the backside. Like it's been an ongoing issue. They entered this game league worst in free throw shooting, despite having the best free throw shooter in the history of the game. They entered the game 30th in free throw shooting. So let's not say this is a complete surprise and this was a one-off game. It is an ongoing issue. And I've spoken about it previously. Like, I don't think it's necessarily that surprising because there's just a lot of free throw shooters on this team where you're hoping they go in more so than you're confident they're going in. And these guys individually just aren't good free throw shooters. Like Steph and Buddy are great. Draymond's actually been pretty good this season. He went 1 of 2 tonight. But Wiggins went 6 of 8. He's been a bit improved, but even then it's still kind of you're hoping more than you got confidence. TJD, not a great free throw shooter at the moment. Waters doesn't take them necessarily. Steph didn't take 1 tonight. GP2 didn't take 1. Not a great free throw shooter anyway. Kuminga's the biggest one because Kuminga's the one that gets to the line the most. And so if you're going to get to the line, then again, you've got to make him count. 1 of 4. I mean, it's just terrible. There's no excuses, really. There is just absolutely no excuse for going 1 of 4 from the free throw line if you're any NBA player. I don't care who you are. Like, I don't care if you're Shaquille O'Neal. I don't care who you are. Like, there's no excuse for that. I'm not saying it's like anyone can do it, but it's the simplest skill in basketball you would have thought. Like, just go to the free throw line and make a shot. Can't be that difficult. Hill didn't take any. Kyle Anderson didn't take any. Pods 1 of 3, and that was on a 3-point shooting foul. Again, like, you just got to make them. Like, he rimmed home the first and then missed the next 2, and it's like, what are we doing here? Like, so Kuminga, Pajemski, Jackson Davis go 2 of 9 from the free throw line. I mean, it's just poor. Like, there's no other way to put it. It's horrible. FTW Clan says, to lose by 3 with 10 missed free throws hurts. Safe to say we don't want to match up with the Clippers in the playoffs. Yeah, the Clippers, I mean, they just make it uncomfortable. They make it uncomfortable on both ends of the floor. Like, I know they only scored 102 points, and the Warriors did a better job defensively in the second half, no doubt about that. They were down by 11 at halftime. They forced the Clippers into some turnovers and some tough looks in the second half that the Warrior defense picked up. But even still, like, I don't feel like the Warriors – I feel like the Warriors have to give up a bit to the Clipper offense sometimes. Like, again, Zubac doesn't have a big game in this one, but from a statistical standpoint, like, he's 8 points, does have 17 rebounds, but like offensively, 8 points, 3 of 8 shooting, right? Only gets the free throw line twice, goes 2 of 2, has 4 assists, right? Not a huge game aside from the rebounding from his standpoint. Even then, only 1 of those offensive. But I think his impact, you look at him plus 21 in the ball game. And the reason why I think he was so impactful, even though he wasn't the one putting the ball in the bucket, is because I think the Warriors learnt from last time and him going for 23, 18, and 6 in the first encounter and thought, okay, we've got to be really careful here that we got to try and help. Like, Looney's out. We've got Trace. We're probably going to try and go small, which I think was the right idea with, Draymond and Slow-Mo at the 5. We're going to do that, and therefore we got to have heaps of bodies at Zubac on the interior, and we're going to help as much as possible at the rim to try and stop him. And in doing so, they left guys wide open from the perimeter. And so the Clippers, from the floor, they only shoot 42.7% from a Warrior defense standpoint. That's great. Fantastic. Except the Clippers shoot 47.1%, 16 of 34 from three-point range. And again, I think that goes down to they're kind of all crashing on the inside trying to stop Zubac and other guys that are driving, that they just, again, leave guys wide open from the perimeter. Norman Powell, like just they mentioned on the broadcast with Fitzy and Klenner that like they were just one step short on closing out on Norman Powell like the whole game, and he goes 5 of 6. Like, he'll kill you. He's 47% from 3 on the season, and he did. Team high 23 points, 9 of 15, 5 of 6 from 3-point range. Even like Zubac played a lot of his minutes like start of the second quarter with the bench unit. And it's like, look at the 3-point attempts that some of these guys from the Clippers took. Amir Coffey, 2 of 6 from the 3-point line. And then also took three free throws from a 3-point shooting foul from Buddy Hield at the end of the third quarter, which I'll get into. So he takes 6. Batum goes 3 of 5. I think he made I think he went 3 or 4 in the first half. And then Terrence Mann, 2 of 6. Now, you're probably happy to live with that from a Warriors standpoint a little bit. Like, Terrence Mann's not a good 3-point shooter. Coffey's okay. Batum has historically been quite good. But like that's 17 3-point attempts from 3 guys off the bench. That just kind of was the way the Warriors were playing, with them acknowledging that, hey, we're small, so we're going to have to try and throw bodies at Zubac on the inside. And that's why I think you look at Zubac and see 8 points, 3 of 8 shooting, and then you think, oh, okay, he didn't have that much impact offensively, but then you see the plus 21, and I think that's why, because when he was on the floor, the Warriors just focused on defending the interior. Guys get open on the perimeter. FTW Clan says they have really active hands in the passing lanes. That really disrupts our play style. Yeah, they're just, from the get-go, it was an eerily similar game to the first matchup, right? Like, similar score in the end, similar style, just completely favored the Clippers. Like, slow, half court. Clippers can lock in defensively, can use their size, their athleticism on the wings. As you said, getting in passing lanes. Like, it was a Clipper style game from the outset. And the Warriors tried hard, right? We just talked about, like, they had 2 shots at the end to try and force overtime. Like, they came back and were much improved in the second half. But at no point did I think, okay, yep, this is a Warrior-style game. They've got the momentum here. They're going to run away with this. Like, I think the Warriors in general are just a better team than the Clippers. I think the start of this season has shown that. But specifically against the Clippers, I'm not so sure. Does that make sense? Like, Golden State, like, the record would tell you, and in most games, like, the Warriors are a better team than the Clippers. But there's something about the Clippers that just makes things really difficult for the Warriors. And I think huge credit has to go to Ty Lue for how he sets up, how he got. Like, Steph played all right, 10 of 21, 6 of 15, 26 points, which was a game high. Like, they're reasonable splits. But again, like, I don't think Steph ever feels comfortable against the Clippers too much. And so between the turnovers, the free throw issues, like, they're the differences in the game. Warriors have 7 turnovers. I wrote about it for Blue Man Hoop earlier today. It was always going to happen. I wrote about how good the Warriors had been looking after the ball and not turning the ball over. And of course, next game they come up and they throw the ball away 7 times in the first quarter. Bound to happen. Absolute lock. Should have bet if you could bet on the overs for turnovers in the first quarter, then that would have been an absolute lock for the Warriors, given what I wrote earlier. So they ended up with 19 turnovers. Clips had 17, so that was not a huge difference. Like, Warriors actually took 2 more field goal attempts than the Clippers. Again, just the free throw shooting. Just, I don't know. What can you say? JSW says, couldn't watch the game. What went wrong with the Warriors? I've just been talking about free throw shooting. I mean, again, there's not many times in a game where you can pinpoint one exact thing and say that's the difference. This is one. Like, you take 1 more free throw attempt to make 7 less than the opposition. I don't know. It's something the Warriors clearly need to work on. But as I said before, like, they've just got a bunch of free throw shooters who aren't great, aside from Steph and Buddy and Lindy Waters, and he's not getting to the free throw line at all. So, yeah, disappointing. FTW Clan says not having Looney definitely hurts against Zubac. Yeah, I think there's probably occasions where Looney could have been out there and you could say, okay, well, we're just going to play him straight up one-on-one. And see what happens there, rather than the defense collapsing and letting him and others, kick out to open shooters like we saw. Gamer F2P says, remember what I said, can't be a contender if not shooting 80% as a team from the line. Yeah. I don't know. It's an interesting theory. I don't know where other teams that are maybe in championship contention. Let's just look up free throw shooting at the moment across the league. All right, teams, traditional. All right. Isn't it crazy how the Warriors are like second in 3-point percentage and like 30th in free throw percentage? Like, it's so crazy because oftentimes, like scouts and stuff like that will look at free throw shooting and say, oh, well, if he's a decent free throw shooter, then eventually that might extend to the 3-point line. And you'd think there's some kind of correlation there, but there's just not. And I suppose like there's a huge contrast because, you know, Steph, Buddy Hield, they take a heap of threes. Lindy Waters, they take a heap of threes, and they're not the ones taking free throws. It's usually like Kuminga, Wiggins, the athletic guys who actually get to the rim. Like, that makes sense, but it's still funny nonetheless. Not funny, it's pretty woeful, the fact they're 30th in free throw shooting. Kings are top 82.7%. Celtics, Spurs, okay. So any good teams down the bottom, because we're trying to work on this theory that you're talking about in terms of 80% as a team. Do we want to say the Bucks? So the Warriors are down below 70% now, 69.7. That's disgusting. Bucks are second last, 71.4. I suppose they got Giannis, who's obviously not a great free throw shooter and takes a lot. The Raptors, the Pistons, the Rockets, the Clippers. God, that hurts when the Clippers are ranked 25th and yet they go 16 of 18 in this game. Trailblazers, Suns. I don't know if there's a huge correlation between free throw shooting and, you know, how good you can be. But yes, I agree with you that being under 70% and being last in the league is going to cost you some games, and it certainly cost the Warriors in this one. JSW says, just check the free throws. 47.4% is crazy. Clippers Stadium, yeah, maybe that made with the wall, maybe that made a bit of, but I think the Warriors were shooting to the wall in the first half, I think, and then away from it in the second half, and it didn't really matter. Like, they were just missing free throws anyway. Phalanx, I'm not sure if I've pronounced that correctly, says most teams play out of their minds when they play the Warriors. It's generally been a thing for a few years, I suppose, with the Warriors being the most successful team in the league over the last decade, and teams really hyping themselves up to play the Warriors, and often seeing it, particularly when the Warriors were the best team in the league or one of the best teams in the league, you know, it being a litmus test for teams, and therefore teams really coming out with an edge to try and beat the Warriors. I'm not sure if it's a thing anymore, and I just think it's a fact that the Clippers just have the Warriors edge right now for some reason. Like, the Warriors just cannot get their style down against the Clippers. They can't get a rhythm and any momentum in these games. Like, it's just slow and it's just rough. Henry Asokan says, I'm pissed because I thought calling quit and post up in this situation would have been a nice matchup against Zubac. I'm assuming you're saying at least to get an early look against someone we knew we were going to struggle with. Yeah, so Quinton Post was active in this game. He's had 3 games in the G League, averaging a double-double, not shooting the ball well at all. He's like 40% from the floor and 19% from three-point range. Rebounding the ball well. I haven't watched enough to be able to tell too much about his defense or whatever else. But, yeah, he was active, still hasn't played a minute this season so far. There was a time there, like, he even got a mention on the broadcast, like when Draymond got into some foul trouble in the third quarter, where it was like, oh, okay, could Quinton Post get a look in? I feel like if you were going to give him a look, it would have been in the first half, not the second half. So I don't think that was ever a possibility once the Draymond foul trouble started to happen a little bit. And even then, I think Draymond that was his like third foul he picked up early in the third quarter, whatever it was. Yeah, I mean, from what I saw in the preseason, I don't think he looks like a genuine rotation player to me right now. Looks like he needs a lot of work in the G League, to which I wouldn't say he's dominated, but he's put up numbers so far in the first 3 games. Like, he's averaging, I think, 17 and 11 or something like that, and 3 assists. So he's been reasonable there, but you'd probably like him just to get a long stretch in the G League before he sees like any legitimate rotation minutes for the Warriors, which is maybe slightly disappointing because I thought as a 24-year-old rookie, he might have some impact. If Steve's not going to go to him when Loon's out in a situation like this against a genuine big like Zubac, who Post is literally the only guy on the Warrior roster who could match up with him from a size standpoint, at least height-wise, then he's probably not going to go to him much at all, you would have thought, throughout the first half of the season at least. Daniel Hall says Wiggs did hit his 2 most important free throws in clutch and made good plays down the stretch. Just a tough loss. Yeah, Wiggs played well. And remember, he played really well in the first game against the Warriors, against the Clippers, where I think he had 29 points on 11 of 15 shooting, like super efficient. And then he has another 22 points here, 7 of 12 shooting, 2 of 4 from deep, 6 of 8 from the line. So him going 75%. It's okay. Like, I'm not pointing that out as some huge disappointing outlier. Like, 75% is fine. I suppose I'd like it to be even better than that. I'd like him to be an 80% free throw shooter, but 75%, you probably just have to live with it and say that's about his normal range. Yeah, he's playing well. I don't have an issue with Wiggs at the moment. I think a game against, like, a matchup with the Clippers is kind of his forte a little bit because it is a half court style a little bit, and the Warriors probably have to lean on his individual shot creation and shot making a little bit more than what they generally have to against most other teams, where they can play their more free flowing ball movement style and get, basically spread the offense around with, a bunch of different players. And we've seen how many times this season they've had, 6, 7, 8 double-digit scorers in any one game, as we saw on Friday against the Grizzlies, where no one really went off. It was just done by committee. I feel like this is a game, a team against the Clippers where, with what they do defensively, you have to really rely heavily on Steph and Wiggs as kind of your two go-to guys offensively. Gamer F2P says if Warriors hit 60% tonight from the free throw line, they win this game. Yep. Shavant says if Kerr doesn't lock their butts in the gym for the entire All-Star break to improve their free throw shooting, I'll fly from India to do it myself. Okay, that'd be nice. Yeah, I mean, I don't like. Again, I don't know. Like, are these guys ever? Is Kuminga ever going to be a really good free throw shooter? Is Pajemski ever going to be a really good free throw shooter? Like, is Trace ever going to be a really good free throw shooter? I don't know. I hope so, but like, I mean, they're young players. They're going to improve, and that's an area that they certainly need to improve. Maybe. And also, you saying that they need to lock their butts in the gym for the entire All-Star break. This stuff needs to happen before the All-Star break. Otherwise, they're probably going to lose a couple more games simply because of poor free throw shooting. Gamer F2P says, teams will always foul GSW to avoid 2 points. Easiest stop a team can get playing the Warriors. I mean, yeah, like, that's actually kind of a thing, though. I mean, it sounds funny to say, but like, that will be a thing that coaches will say is like, okay, if there's an open layup or an open dunk, then make sure you hack the guys because they will miss free throws. It's like, that is actually a thing. It sounds funny to say, but it's a thing. Phalanx says, the reason I say they play out of their minds is the Warriors are number one in 3-point defense. The Clippers are normally 37% from three. Today, 47%. They do get up for the Warriors still. Ty Lue always does. Yeah, maybe that goes back to his days as the Cavs coach as well, and a championship winning coach there. Yeah, I mean, you have a point with the 3-point shooting. I also, like, can you get up to be, like, can you hype yourself up to be a good 3-point shooter? Like, I think some days you have it, some days you don't. I don't think that's really got anything to, how you come to the game from a concentration standpoint. I also just think it's how the Warriors guarded the Clippers in kind of, they went too far. I think they tried too hard to make sure Zubac wasn't a force in terms of scoring the ball himself. And as a result, their defense collapsed too many times and left open shooters. Henry Ahsoken says, I saw a video from Athletic Alchemy for guys we could make a trade for. He listed multiple great Warrior big options. One guy in particular is Drew Eubanks, 6'10" mobile big who can shoot and strong. I don't think Drew Eubanks can shoot. I'd like to see the numbers on Drew Eubanks shots outside the paint. I mean, he's on Utah at the moment as a backup big. I mean, you could have him for not much, you'd imagine, but that doesn't really interest me too much. I would love to have Eubanks on the team when we need that extreme size and even athleticism at points. Drew is a dog who has proven to anchor and spurt minutes on real contenders. Yeah, like, you're welcome to your opinion. I disagree. Like, I don't really have any interest in Drew Eubanks. I think, again, cheap contract, like, wouldn't cost much to get him, you wouldn't have thought, but I don't know how much of a difference he makes. Again, like, he's 6'10", like, he's strong, he's well built, like, he's a big guy, but I don't know, like, if you're relying on him to come in and be the guy to guard opposition bigs, yeah, not for me. Gamer F2P says, Warriors defensive scheme for Clippers is bad. Always leaves Norman Powell open. Yeah, I mean, he's having a great season, to be fair. It's not as if this is like a one-off game for Norman Powell. Like, he's had a lot of these where he's, shooting the ball really, really well and averaging, like, he's in most improved player conversation at the age of 31 or whatever else. Credit to him because he had that kind of, sounded like an outlandish statement when he was like, oh, it could be addition by subtraction with the loss of Paul George and allowing other guys like myself to heat up. And in fairness to him, like, I think a few people laughed at that and think don't put yourself in the same kind of category as Paul George. Well, I mean, he's having a better season than Paul George, so credit to him for that. Gamer FTP says they should leave Zubac one-on-one. Yeah, I mean, they did that last time for not a majority, but for a fair portion, and he absolutely killed us. They just don't have really a matchup for. I thought Draymond guarded him pretty well one-on-one. Like, you've probably got to recognize earlier on, like, you probably got to change it up. Like, you can't go from, okay, we're going to go one game where we play him one-on-one to the next game where we, defense collapse, we help on the interior, and then the shooters are open. Like, you need to actually change it up so they get different looks. And maybe they were doing that a little bit, but it felt like too much like, okay, first game we'll play him one-on-one with a bit of collapsing. Like, he did have 6 assists, which is like, it's pretty simple basketball where it's like pick and roll, Zubac's on the roll, and he's good enough now to be able to hit open shooters because, the weak side helps over, and Norman Powell, Derek Jones Jr., Terrence Mann, Amir Coffey, whoever it is wide open. I don't know. It's pretty simple basketball, but it's effective when a team like the Warriors don't really have the size to be able to combat Zubac. GSW's Phalanx, says, I'll agree with the defensive coverage. The doubling was causing us to have a man open. This has been one of the issues Warriors seem content to live with. Yeah, I mean, it varies because, like, you see a game like the Celtics, where the Warriors won. Obviously, that first half where they caused so many turnovers from their double teams, and it was like, okay, if you bring the intensity and the pressure to an enough of a level, then it can really cause issues for the opposing team. I think again, it's about mixing it up a little bit. Like, you can't go too many possessions in a row where you do the exact same thing, and I don't know, like. The Warriors are still like, they're still small, right? They are still relatively small. And so you have to do some of these different things where you double guys and stuff like that. And sometimes you just got to live with something like, and again, today the Warriors are like, okay, Amir Coffey, 6 3-point attempts, Terrence Mann, 5 3-point attempts, 6 3-point attempts himself, Batum, 5 3-point attempts. Like, we're just going to have to live with that and hope for the best. And unfortunately, those guys like hit some shots, and Norman Powell hit all his shots as well. GSO says Eubanks wouldn't be enough of an upgrade for the team, though. I agree with that. Henry says, remember that Suns game last year? He gave us a lot of problems in the Suns, and hence a matchup like Zubac would be a huge difference, but I guess each to his own. Yeah, like that's if you like the other issue with a guy like Eubanks to me is like, who do you actually trade for him? Like, I'm not sure there's the Warriors are that deep that like trading for another role player, like who Henry, honestly, tell me who you would trade on this team for Drew Eubanks. Is it just like Guy Santos, like last guy on the roster you trade? Because other than that, like, I don't think I'd trade any of the top 13 for Drew Eubanks. Gamer FTP says, you might think Zubac killed us last time, but if you watch the game, it was always power. Even the dagger, dagger 3 was power. Yeah, he does kill us. But again, as I said before, he's having a great season, killing a lot of teams. Daniel says, one thing I was confused was how did we keep letting Norman Powell get free? I'm not sure who had him as their main assignment. I think it might have been Lindy. Yeah, I think there was a real emphasis on, packing the paint and trying to stop Zubac, and guys got open, and Norman Powell was one of those, and he was, he's the best 3-point shooter on the team and made us pay. Phalanx says they did a good job on Zubac tonight, just got on the boards a bit. Wiggins, I mean, he's got to get the butter off his fingers. There was that play, was it the fourth quarter, where I don't know if I think Harden tried to throw it back in off Wiggins, and then Wiggins just like fumbled the ball. Like, he had the ball there under the rim for a layup or a dunk, and then he just fumbled the ball, and the Clippers went the other way. And Fitz said on the broadcast, like, oh, if Wiggins could have just grabbed the ball, he had a layup or a dunk. There are times like that where, yes, he does have butterfingers. Henry says, dream big, all reliable Brook Lopez. Should the Bucks ever blow it up this season? I've thought about, spoken about, written about Brook Lopez a little bit. He's kind of the ideal from a 3-and-D standpoint at the center position. I don't mind that. He's just getting a bit. The issue with him is like he's getting on. He's like 36, and he's on a big contract, right? Where he's on over $20 million. Now, it is an expiring contract, and so I'm not necessarily thinking about him as a trade target. But if we want to fast forward completely to next offseason, free agency target, where the Warriors now, operating under the tax aprons, maybe they've got enough of a wiggle room there financially to actually offer Brook Lopez something, because he's clearly not going to get 20 million again. Maybe it's something, I don't know, like what teams are going to have cap room. Do the Bucks re-sign him on a reasonable number? Otherwise, like, it wouldn't. Let me put it this way: after what we saw happen with Tyus Jones and Gary Trent Jr., it wouldn't surprise me if Brook Lopez is signing less than $10 million somewhere next season. Let's put it that way. GSW says, if Brook Lopez becomes available, I'd love to pick him up, but he's on $24 million a year, so I don't know who the Warriors will trade for him. Yeah, exactly. I've spoken about this before. It's like, what depth pieces? Like, you have to do a 3-for-1 trade, and I'm just not sure GP2, like, before Moody signed his extension, it would have been like GP2, Looney, and Moody for Lopez, but like, what is that doing for you? Henry, in response to my question, says, I've got no clue. It would be Gee in this situation, since this is an edge rotation player. Just a matter of seeing what his value in the market would be, especially at the deadline. Just some options. Daniel says, dream big Giannis if the Bucks ever blow it up this season. That is true. Henry says, nah, Giannis would be too expensive for a trade. Is there such a thing as Giannis being too expensive in a trade? I mean, he's one of the best 3-5 players in the league. You know what? While we're on the topic of bigs and Brook Lopez, just got me thinking about Nikola Vucevic, who went for 29 points, 11 of 19 shooting today, I think, or something like that, 6 of 8 from three-point range. He's a guy the Warriors probably could have had in the offseason for not much in terms of a trade standpoint. Now, he doesn't really bring too much from a defensive standpoint, but he's having a hot shooting start to the season on offense. He's like 48% from three and 60% from the floor, and really kind of rejuvenated his shooting in his offensive game after he shot less than 30% from three last season. Now, he's a guy where it's like, okay, you could just talk yourself into him. I probably could, based on how his form is early this season. I don't know if it is sustainable. But then, again, the issue is, okay, what role players do you trade for him? And then, like, I was looking at a trade today. It's like, okay, Looney, Payton, Lindy, Waters for Vucevic. It's like, really? Like, the depth is kind of like, the depth is really good, and it's been a huge strength of the Warriors, and you kind of don't want to give that up unless it's for a star. And Vucevic isn't a star, albeit like he would bring a different element that the Warriors need. Effelank says, but we probably don't want him at 37, even though players like Horford are 38 and working out the Celtics. I don't think Brook is at that level of conditioning now. Yeah, he'll be 37, obviously, in free agency next season. I mean, yeah, he'll be 37, but I could talk myself into it if it's like a minimum or like the mid-level exception. Well, I'd even say non-mid-level exceptional. Like mid-level exceptional, like 13 is probably too much, but like something under 10, I could probably talk myself into it. Andrew the Goat says the Warriors are 0-2 against the Clippers this year. Bree says, I don't understand why the Warriors struggle with the Clippers. Yeah, I think it's just the way they play and the defense they bring against the Warriors, which is the main thing. I don't think it's a surprise that the Warriors haven't shot the ball that well. 2 of their worst games turning the ball over have come against the Clippers. Just is what it is, I think. Bree says, I like Vucevic. Yeah, it's funny because everyone was out on him in the offseason, as they were with Zach LaVine, and those guys could have been had for not much, I would have thought, and yet no team really wanted them. It's funny how, like, for those of you that don't know, Vucevic was even asked by a European reporter about the potential trade rumors to the Warriors specifically, like not even to any other team, just to the Warriors, to which he said, it's just guesswork, just kind of blew it off. But I found it fascinating because I don't remember hearing about any of the rumors or reports about like the Warriors specifically being interested in Vucevic, and this European reporter like just asked him about the Warriors directly. That was interesting. But yeah, I mean, they could have had him for a decent price, but now it's like, okay, he's actually rehabilitated his value to a degree. And then the Warriors, some of the guys they could have traded in terms of like Looney, GP2, they've also rehabilitated their value. So how does that look? GSW says, send TJD, Lindy, and GP2 for Vucevic. Can't happen. They don't make enough money. You've got to remember TJD's on less than $2 million a season. Bree says, what was that fourth quarter defense? We keep leaving Powell open for 3. Yeah, just a step late, as Fitz said on the broadcast. Henry says, if we gut our depth in shooting for Giannis, since that's our best value outside of our defensive wings, hence why I'd say too expensive. The trade for him scares the crap out of me due to injury risk. Yeah, I mean, he's been injured the last couple of playoffs, but otherwise, I don't think Giannis is too injury prone. You'd have to give up everything just to get in the conversation, because there's going to be other teams out there like Houston or whatever that are going to be willing to go all out, and so I don't know. We'll wait and see if that happens. If the Bucks, who got a 1-point win today, quite fortunately, because Damian Lillard made a bucket after Giannis looked like he stepped out of bounds. We'll see what happens there. Phalanx says there will probably be better options next year other than Brook. That said, we can look at Giannis next year if it doesn't work out, but he's on a $50+ million contract. Him and Steph alone are $110+ million. Yeah, I mean, if you trade for a superstar that's making over $40, $50 million, then you're just basically guaranteeing yourself that you're going back into deep into the tax not only over the first, but probably the second tax apron. When you say there's better options next year than Brook, I don't know. It's way too early in the season to be looking at free agency options, but I still do think the Warriors need a big that can stretch the floor. And that's why we're talking about Lopez and Vucevic. Bree says, can we get JaVale McGee? I don't think he's with a team. No, but we can get him. He's not with a team. But again, it's like Eubanks. I don't know. I don't think JaVale McGee is getting another NBA contract. Let me put it that way. Rutherford Meyer says, so close. Henry says, Vucevic now looks good because Dunleavy's acquisitions for the redundancies and defensive versatility he can bring now makes Vucevic someone whose offense can actually be impactful. Makes sense? Yes. I think what you're saying is the Warriors have enough defense on the team and could put enough defense around Vucevic where you could kind of hide him on that end of the floor is, I think, what you're getting that there. And I agree to an extent. Like, I've always thought, okay, Vucevic next to Draymond, then maybe like they kind of make up for each other's weaknesses. Like Draymond can help Vucevic defensively, and then Vuce can help Draymond in his kind of defensive. I'm not even sure Draymond has offensive issues anymore because he's shooting the ball well from three. He goes another 2 of 3 today. Like, he's shooting the ball near 50% from three. If that was Melton, maybe we win. Taking the shot instead of Peyton, I agree. And that's a good point. If D'Anthony Melton's fit and healthy, he's probably on the floor ahead of GP2 in that situation. Now, does he come up with a steal like GP2? Maybe not. But yeah, if he was open in that situation, you'd feel a lot more confident. Again, GP2 taking the last shot, it's like we're hoping. We're not actually confident that he's making that. F-Lang says, only way we get in the Giannis sweepstakes is if he forces his way to the Warriors. I agree with that. There would have to be some kind of him and his management really angling to get to Golden State, because I think if he said I wanted out but didn't actually specify anywhere, then there'd be a heap of teams that could give up more than the Warriors in a trade with their assets. So the Warriors have enough to get in the conversation for Giannis. They could get in the conversation, but again, if it's just a flat out bidding war and the Bucks send him to the team that offer the most, then the Warriors can't really get in that. Daniel says, if we're talking off-season trades, is Larry Markkinen still a prime target for the Warriors? I've been super disappointed. I was watching the Jazz against the Mavericks game the other day. I've been super disappointed with the way Utah are using Larry Markkinen. It's actually a disgrace. Like, they're using him as some like high-end role player rather than a star who they've just signed a $240 million contract to. Like, really disappointing. I'm watching the way they're using him as like a spot-up shooter. And it's just like, he's got to have more than this, surely, at least on this team. Now, if the Warriors were using him like that, you could kind of understand it because they've got Steph, right? But he should be their guy on offense. And he's just like, not really. And like, John Collins is getting all these extra looks. It's like, what are you doing? Like, okay, I mean, it doesn't matter. Like, they're not looking to win. So maybe that's just what they're doing. It's like, okay, we're just not going to run stuff through Larry because he's actually going to make buckets, and it's actually going to help us win games, and we don't want to do that. Maybe that's a thing. The issue with Larry now is he's making over $40 million. And so from a salary matching standpoint and just like the tax implications and stuff like that, that just means he's just nowhere near the value that he was during last offseason, where he was making $18 million. And that's why the Warriors were after him so much. And why he would have been so valuable. Now he's making over 40. Just like, he's going to be available again next offseason. So again, it's a long way till then. He's not available before the deadline because he signed his contract extension after the August 6th date, which married up with the 6-month date of February 6th, which is the trade deadline. Henry says, I mean, Trace would save Vooch easily on defense, good size too. Yeah, I mean, I think they would start Draymond and Vooch and push Trace to the bench, but I actually think you could probably play Vooch a little bit at the 4 and Trace at the 5 together. It'd be a little bit different. It'd be a lot bigger than what the Warriors have generally gone to in the past. It's almost like a double big lineup, which is, NBA yesteryear kind of stuff. But you could probably do it for some minutes here and there. F-Lang says, well, they're trying to tank. That is why. Yep, I answered my own question there. They're trying to capture the flag. Daniel says, correct. Jazz are looking yikes. Henry says, yep, I mean, who cares really about them? F-Lang says they want to get in the market for Cooper Flag. Yep. Bree says, we definitely need another big by the trade deadline. Yeah, I mean, that's the spot right now. That's the spot where you think there's an upgrade that can happen there where I've said it before and I'll say it again. I'm not sure Trace is the guy to be the starting center on if we think the Warriors can be a deep playoff team, I'm not sure Trace is the starter. Let me put it that way. And I'm not sure Looney's either. And I'm not sure Draymond being a small ball center, obviously, that's probably not viable for a long period throughout the season. So, yes, I agree that getting a center is probably the biggest need right now, whether that is a 7-footer who can just be a defensive force, maybe, but more so I'd prefer a guy with a bit of offensive skill and a bit of offensive versatility like a Lopez or a Vucevic. I've been going over 40 minutes. I've got an hour till my game, so I'm going to head off. If you've got any other comments, I'll read them out quickly. F-Lang says, that's iffy. Doing a trade as the depth and chemistry is good now. Could cause issues. Yeah, if it's not for a star and you've got to give up your depth, that's where the worry comes in, which is guys like Vucevic, Lopez still making $20+ million. Anyway, guys, I'm going to head off. Thank you very much for all the comments. GSW says, Warriors should have asked for Kristaps Porzingis instead of Chris Paul. Yes, that is, I mean, we just wouldn't have that issue right now. Yes, Porzingis is injured, but the Warriors have the depth that you could cover that. Like, if Porzingis was on the sidelines now, then it just wouldn't be an issue. Like, you could just say, okay, we're just going to man the fort until he comes back with Trace and Looney. That's disappointing. Henry says, off topic, how good is our boy Dante looking in Minnesota? Interesting to keep tabs on our ex-players from time to time. Yeah, I mean, it's I write about former Warrior players. I've been really impressed with Jordan Poole this season. Didn't have a great game today against the Knicks. They got blown out. But he's having a really good season. And he's almost in the most improved category as well in the conversation, which I think stems more from the fact he was so poor last season. But he's having a really good year again. It's probably not going to matter too much until the Wizards actually become good again, which could still be a few years. But there's some Warrior players with different, contrasting fortunes around the league. JP's going really well. Clay, not so much recently. Dario Saric, still don't know why the Nuggets gave him a 2-year, $10 million contract. That was silly. Alrighty, I'll finish it up there. Thank you very much, guys, for tuning in. If you haven't subscribed to the YouTube channel already, that would be greatly appreciated. You can follow me at POC252. That's POK252 on X/Twitter. Warriors play again on Wednesday at home against the Atlanta Hawks. And my man, Dyson Daniels, just another game-winning play from him today, still on the ball off De'Aaron Fox at the end there. He's extraordinary. Looking forward to watching him play, although it's going to be a fascinating battle between him and I'm assuming he's going to have Steph. It's going to be a fascinating battle. The Great Barrier Thief, they're calling him. Absolutely love him. Australia's best NBA player now. There's no doubt about that. Looking forward to that one. I might be back for a preview episode tomorrow, maybe talk a bit more about Dyson Daniels because I wouldn't mind doing that. So we'll wait and see. Otherwise, I'm not sure if I'll be able to do a post-game live after that game because I'm pretty sure I've got to go out for dinner Thursday night. I'll be able to watch the game. Not sure if I'll be able to do a post-game live. But anyway, thanks again for tuning in and enjoy the rest of your week ahead.